How you develop the Vipassanā knowledges to see Nibbāna, Talk 7 from the book Knowing and Seeing by the Venerable Pa-Auk Sayadaw. Introduction. In the last talk, we discussed briefly how to discern dependent origination according to the fifth and first methods. Today we shall discuss briefly how to develop the Vipassanā knowledges to see Nibbāna. There are 16 Vipassanā knowledges, jnana, that need to be developed progressively in order to see Nibbāna. The first Vipassanā knowledge is the mentality-materiality definition knowledge. This knowledge was explained when we discussed how to discern mentality and materiality. The second Vipassanā knowledge is cause-apprehending knowledge. This knowledge was explained in our last talk when we discussed how to discern the causal relationship between mentality and materiality of past, present, and future, which is to discern dependent origination. After you have developed those two knowledges, you need to complete them by again discerning all mentality, all materiality, and all the factors of dependent origination according to their individual characteristic, function, manifestation, and proximate cause. It is not really possible to explain this in a brief way, so it is best to learn the details at the time of actually practicing. Now let us look briefly at the remaining knowledges. How you develop the comprehension knowledge. The third Vipassanā knowledge is the comprehension knowledge, which is to comprehend formations by categories, to see the three characteristics, impermanence, anicca, suffering, dukkha, and non-self, anatta, in formations according to different categories. Two categories as mentality, materiality, 5 categories as the 5 aggregates, 12 categories as the 12 bases. That's the 6 sense bases, internally, 6 externally. I'm getting that right. 12 categories as the 12 factors of dependent origination, 18 categories as the 18 elements. For example, in the cause of the 5 categories, the Buddha teaches in the Anattana Lakkhana Sutta to discern the 5 aggregates, all materiality, feeling, perception, formations, and consciousness with the right understanding in 3 ways as this is not mine, this I am not, and this is not myself. And in the Khanda Sutta, he explains each of the 5 aggregates as past, future, and present, internal and external, gross and subtle, inferior and superior, far and near. To develop this knowledge, you first reestablish the 4th jhana with the light, bright, brilliant, and radiant. If you, as a pure Vipassana individual, have developed only the 4 elements meditation, you reestablish concentration until the light is bright and strong. In either case, you take materiality as your first category. That is, you discern the concrete materiality of each of the 6 sense doors, seeing its arising and perishing, and know it as impermanence, anicca. You need to do this internally and externally, alternately, again and again. While doing this externally, you should gradually extend your range of perception from near to far to the infinite universe. Then, following the same procedure, see the pain and suffering one has to constantly experience because of that materialities arising and perishing, and know it as suffering, dukkha. Lastly, see the materiality as devoid of a permanent self and know it as non-self. The next category in which you need to see impermanence, suffering, and non-self is mentality. First, discern all the mentality at the 6 sense doors that you discerned before. That is, the consciousness and the associated mental factors in each consciousness moment of each sense door process, and the bhavanga consciousnesses that occur between them. You follow the same procedure as with materiality. Having seen these 2 categories, the materiality and mentality of the 6 sense doors of the present, you need now to see the impermanent suffering and non-self of the materiality and mentality of this life that you discerned from the rebirth linking consciousness up to the deceased consciousness. Here again, you see the three characteristics one at a time, again and again, both internally and externally. After doing this life, you need to see the impermanent suffering and non-self of the past, present, and future lives that you discerned when discerning dependent origination. Here too, you see the three characteristics one at a time, internally and externally, again and again, in all the materiality and mentality that you discerned of the past, present, and future. And then you need also to see the impermanent suffering and non-self of the factors of dependent origination for the past, present, and future, according to the first method of dependent origination, one at a time, again and again, internally and externally. At this stage, you may find that you develop the higher Vipassanā knowledges quickly, stage by stage, up to the attainment of arhatship. If not, there are several exercises to increase your Vipassanā. How you increase your Vipassanā knowledge, the 40 perceptions. The first exercise is to see the impermanent suffering and non-self of mentality, materiality, internally and externally in the past, present, and future according to the 40 different contemplations. In Pali, they all end with the suffix to, T-O, English letters. So we call them the 42. There are 10 different perceptions of impermanence. Number 1, impermanence. 2, disintegrating. 3, fickle. 4, perishable. 5, unenduring. Number 6, of a changeable nature. Number 7, coreless. Number 8, extinguishable. Number 9, of a mortal nature. Number 10, formed. There are 25 perceptions of suffering. Number 1, suffering. Number 2, a disease. Number 3, a misery. And then on without the numbers here. A tumor, a dart, an affliction, a disaster, a fearsome thing, a plague, a menace, no protection, no shelter, no refuge, murderous, the root of calamity, a danger, tainted, Mara's bait, of a born nature, of an aging nature, of an ailing nature, of a sorrowful nature, of a lamentable nature, of a disparaging nature, and number 25, of a defiled nature. There are 5 perceptions of non-self. Number 1, non-self. Number 2, void. Number 3, alien. Number 4, empty. And number 5, vain. While seeing the 42 in mentality and materiality, internally and externally, in the past, present, and future, some people's Vipassanā progresses to the attainment of arhatship. If not, there are then the exercises called the 7 ways for materiality and the 7 ways for mentality. The 7 ways for materiality. The materiality you discern in the 7 ways for materiality, the 4 types to origin, kama, temperature, consciousness, and nutriment-born materiality. Number 1. In the first of the 7 ways for materiality, you see the impermanent suffering and non-self of the materiality of this entire lifetime, from rebirth linking to death, both internally and externally. In the second way for materiality, you see the impermanent suffering and non-self of the materiality of different periods in this lifetime, both internally and externally. You consider this lifetime to be 100 years and divide it into 3 periods of 33 years. Then you see the materiality in the one period arises and ceases there and does not pass on to the next period, which means it is impermanent suffering and non-self. Then you divide this lifetime into progressively smaller periods and do the same. Divide the 100 years of this lifetime into 10 periods of 10 years, 20 periods of 5 years, 25 periods of 4 years, 33 periods of 3 years, 50 periods of 2 years, and 100 periods of 1 year. And then 300 periods of 4 months, 600 periods of 2 months, and 2,400 periods of half a month. And finally divide each day into 2 periods, and then 6 periods. In each case, see that the materiality in one period arises and ceases there and does not pass on to the next period, which means it is impermanent, suffering, and non-self. You reduce the periods further to the duration of each movement of the body, the periods of going forth and going back, looking ahead and looking aside, and bending a limb and stretching a limb. Then you divide each footsteps into 6 periods: lifting, raising, moving forward, lowering, placing, and pressing. Again, see the impermanent, suffering, and non-self in the materiality of each period in this 100-year lifetime. Number 3. In the third way from materiality, you see the impermanent, suffering, and non-self of nutriment-born materiality. That is, you see them in the materiality of the periods when hungry and when satisfied, and see that it does not pass on from a period of hunger to a period of satiation or satiety, and vice versa, every day in this 100-year lifetime. Number 4. In the fourth way for materiality, you see the impermanence, suffering, and non-self of temperature-born materiality. That is, you see them in the materiality of the periods when hot and when cold, and see that it does not pass on from a period of feeling hot to a period of feeling cold, and vice versa, every day in this 100-year lifetime. In the fifth way for materiality, you see the impermanent, suffering, and non-self of karma-born materiality. That is, you see that the materiality of each of the 6 sense doors arises and ceases there, and does not pass on to another door every day in this 100-year lifetime. In the sixth way for materiality, you see the impermanent, suffering, and non-self of the consciousness-born materiality. That is, you see them in the materiality of the periods when happy and pleased, and when unhappy and sad, every day in this 100-year lifetime. In number 7, in the seventh way for materiality, you see the impermanent, suffering, and non-self of present, inanimate materiality. Materiality is inanimate when it is without karma-born materiality, such as the life faculty and the 5 translucencies. That is, for example, iron, steel, copper, gold, silver, plastic, pearls, gemstones, shells, marble, coral, soil, rock, concrete, and plants. Such materiality is found only externally. These are the 7 ways for materiality. The 7 ways for mentality. In the 7 ways for mentality, you see the impermanent, suffering, and non-self of the Vipassanā minds, the mentality that saw those 3 characteristics in the 7 ways for materiality. This means your object in each case This means your object is in each case a Vipassanā mind, which you see with a subsequent Vipassanā mind. Number 1, in the first of the 7 ways for mentality, you see the impermanent, suffering, and non-self of the materiality of the 7 ways for materiality, but see the materiality as a group. You then see the impermanent, suffering, and non-self of the mentality that saw this. That means you see the grouped materiality as impermanence, and then see the impermanent, suffering, and non-self of that Vipassanā mind itself, with, in each case, a subsequent Vipassanā mind. You do the same with the group materiality seen as suffering and non-self. In the second way for mentality, you see the impermanent, suffering, and non-self of the mentality for each of the 7 ways for materiality. That means you see again the materiality in each of the 7 ways for the materiality as impermanence, and then see the impermanent, suffering, and non-self of that Vipassanā mind itself, with, in each case, a subsequent Vipassanā mind. You do the same with the materiality seen as suffering and non-self. Number 3, in the third way for mentality, you see again the impermanent, suffering, and non-self of the mentality for each of the 7 ways for materiality, but do so 4 times in succession. That means you see again the materiality in each of the 7 ways for materiality as impermanence, and then see the impermanent suffering and non-self of that first Vipassanā mind with the second Vipassanā mind, and the second with the third, etc., until you, with the fifth Vipassanā mind, see the impermanent suffering and non-self of the fourth Vipassanā mind. You do the same with the materiality seen as suffering and non-self. And the fourth way for mentality, you do as before, but continue until with an 11th Vipassanā mind, see the impermanent suffering and non-self of the 10th Vipassanā mind. Number 5, in the fifth way for mentality, you see the impermanent suffering and non-self of mentality for the removal of views, ditthi. Here again, you see the Vipassanā minds of the 7 ways for materiality. Then, once the perceptions of impermanence and suffering have become strong and powerful, you intensify the perception of non-self. With the support of the other 2 perceptions, the intensified perception of non-self removes views, especially the view of self. Number 6, in the 6th way for mentality, you see the impermanent suffering and non-self of mentality for the removal of conceit. Again, you see the Vipassanā minds of the 7 ways for materiality. Then, once the perceptions of suffering and non-self have become strong and powerful, you intensify the perception of impermanence. With the support of the other 2 perceptions, the intensified perception of impermanence removes conceit. Number 7, in the 7th way for mentality, you see the impermanent suffering and non-self of mentality for the removal of attachment. Again, you see the Vipassanā minds of the 7 ways for materiality. Then, once the perceptions of impermanence and non-self have become strong and powerful, you intensify the perception of suffering. With the support of the other 2 perceptions, the intensified perception of suffering removes attachment. These are the 7 ways for mentality. It is best, although not strictly necessary, to have done these exercises for the materiality and mentality of the present, past, and future, internally and externally. With the exercises complete, materiality and mentality will have become very clear to you. Now the explanation of how to develop the knowledge of formations and categories is complete. So let us discuss how to develop arise and perish knowledge. How you develop the arise and perish knowledge. Introduction. The arise and perish knowledge is to know the arising and perishing of formations, mentality, materiality, the 5 aggregates, the 12 bases, the 18 elements, the noble truths, and dependent origination, internally and externally, in the present, past, and future. This knowledge consists, in fact, of 2 knowledges. Number 1, knowledge of the causal, that is, the causal arising and perishing of formations. And number 2, the knowledge of the momentary, that is, the momentary arising and perishing of formations. To see the causal arising and perishing of formations, you see it, for example, according to the 5th method of dependent origination, as described in our previous talk. To see the momentary arising and perishing of formations, you see how the 5 aggregates arise and perish in each consciousness moment of the mental processes that you have discerned, from rebirth to death of every life you have discerned. There are 2 methods for developing the arise and perish knowledge. The brief method, seeing only the momentary nature of formations, and the detailed method, seeing both the causal and momentary nature of formations. I shall explain only the detailed method. The detailed method is developed in 3 stages. You see, number 1, only the arising, that is, the causal and momentary arising of formations. Number 2, only the perishing, that is, the causal and momentary perishing of formations. Number 3, both the arising and perishing, that is, both the causal and momentary arising and perishing of formations. How you develop the arise and perish knowledge according to the 5th method of dependent origination, the contemplation of the nature of arising. To begin the detailed method for developing the arise and perish knowledge, you should see again and again the causal and momentary arising of formations. This is the contemplation of the nature of arising. For example, you see the causal arising of materiality according to the fifth method of dependent origination, as just mentioned. This means you look back again to the near-death moments of your past life to see the 5 past causes that cause the arising, udaya, in this life of kama-born materiality. One by one, you see how the arising, 1 of ignorance, 2 of craving, 3 of clinging, 4 of volitional formations, and 5 of kama, each cause the arising in this life of kama-born materiality. Afterwards, you see the momentary arising of kama-born materiality in every consciousness moment of the mental processes that you have discerned from rebirth to death. This means you see the 5 aggregates as the arising of the process separate consciousnesses, and at the arising of each consciousness moment in all the intervening 6 sense door processes that you have discerned. You see this in every past life that you have discerned and in all the future lives up to your Nibbāna. You need then to see one after the other also the causal arising of temperature, of consciousness, and of nutriment-born materiality. You see how consciousness caused the arising of consciousness-born materiality. Temperature caused the arising of temperature-born materiality, and nutriment caused the arising of nutriment-born materiality. In each case, you see also the momentary arising of the particular type of materiality. After this, you have to see in the same way the causal and momentary arising of mentality, and see the arising of materiality and mentality in all the mental processes that you have discerned in all the past and future lives that you have discerned. It would, however, take some time to list the details, so we shall pass them over and in each instance explain the details for only materiality. The contemplation of the nature of perishing. After seeing the causal and momentary arising of materiality and mentality, you now see again and again only their perishing. This is the contemplation of the nature of perishing. The perishing of ignorance, craving, clinging, volitional formations, and kamic potency takes place when you attain arhatship, and the cessation of the 5 aggregates takes place at your Nibbāna. Whereas the causal arising is the individual type of ignorance, craving, clinging, volitional formations, and kamic potency that you discern at each life where it takes place, the cessation is always in the same life, when the 5 aggregates at Nibbāna no longer arise. But actual Nibbāna and the Arhat path is not evident to us because we have not yet realized the 4 path knowledges and the 4 fruition knowledges. We understand that our Nibbāna has taken place because there is no more arising of the aggregates. For example, you see the causal cessation of materiality again according to the 5th method of dependent origination. That is, when you look forward to the time when you become an arhat and see that when you attain the arhat path and the arhat fruition, all defilements cease, and that at the end of that life, all formations cease. It is directly seeing your Nibbāna, after which no new materiality or mentality arises or passes away. Should you attain arhatship in this very life, it will be in the future. Should you attain arhatship in one of your future lives, it will also be in the future. One by one, you see that the cessation, nirodha, of ignorance, craving, of clinging, of volitional formations, and of kama, respectively, each cause the cessation of kama-born materiality. Having in that way seen the causal cessation of kama-born materiality, you now see only its momentary perishing. Afterwards, you see the momentary perishing of karma-born materiality in every consciousness moment of the mental processes that you have discerned from rebirth to death in every past and future life that you have discerned. This means you again see the five aggregates at the cessation of the process-separate consciousnesses and at the cessation of each consciousness moment in all the intervening six sense-door processes that you have discerned. You need then to see one after the other the causal cessation of consciousness, of temperature, and of nutriment-born materiality. You see how the cessation of consciousness causes the cessation of consciousness-born materiality. The cessation of temperature causes the cessation of temperature-born materiality. The cessation of nutriment causes the cessation of nutriment-born materiality. In each case, you see also the momentary perishing of the particular type of materiality. After this, you have to see the causal cessation and momentary perishing of mentality. The contemplation of the nature of arising and perishing. Once you have seen both the causal and momentary cessation of mentality and materiality and mentality, you now see again and again both their arising and perishing. This is the contemplation of the nature of arising and perishing. It involves seeing first their causal arising and perishing, and then their momentary arising and perishing. You see each one in three ways successively. Number one, the arising of the cause and its result. Number two, the perishing of the cause and its result. And number three, the impermanence of the cause and its result. For example, you see one by one how, number one, the arising of each cause, ignorance, craving, clinging, volitional formations, karma, causes the arising of karma-born materiality. Number two, the cessation of each same cause causes the cessation of karma-born materiality. And number three, each cause and the materiality it produced is impermanent. Likewise, you see one by one how, number one, consciousness causes the arising of consciousness-born materiality. Number two, the cessation of consciousness causes the cessation of consciousness-born materiality. And number three, consciousness is impermanent and consciousness-born materiality is impermanent. And you see the same for temperature and nutriment-born materiality. This is how you see both the causal and momentary arising and perishing of materiality. After that, you have to see the causal and momentary arising and perishing of mentality. So, in the way just outlined, you see the causal and momentary arising and perishing of also the five aggregates and see the three characteristics of impermanence, suffering, and non-self in them. You should do this for the five internal aggregates, the five external aggregates, the five aggregates of the past, present, and future. How you develop the arise and perish knowledge according to the first method of dependent origination. Next, you need to develop this Vipassanā with also the first method of dependent origination. In that case, to see the causal arising of formations, you see the factors of dependent origination one by one in forward order and see that, number one, because of ignorance, formations arise. Number two, because of formations, consciousness arise. Number three, because of consciousness, mentality, materiality. Number four, because of mentality, materiality, the six sense bases. Because of the six bases, contact. Because of contact, feeling. Because of feeling, craving. Because of craving, clinging. Because of clinging, existence. Because of existence, birth. Because of birth, aging and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair arise. Such is the origin of this whole mass of suffering. To see the causal cessation of formations at arhatship and the resultant Nibbāna, you see the factors of dependent cessation one by one in forward order to see that, number one, with ignorance's remainderless fading away in cessation, volitional formations cease. With volitional formation cessation, consciousness ceases. With consciousness's cessation, mentality materiality ceases. With mentality materiality cessation, the six sense bases cease. With the six sense bases cessation, contact ceases. With contact's cessation, feeling ceases. With feeling cessation, craving ceases. With craving cessation, clinging ceases. With clinging cessation, existence ceases. With existence is cessation, birth ceases. With birth's cessation, aging and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair cease. Such is the cessation of this whole mass of suffering. As before, you see both the causal and momentary arising and perishing of formations. You see the factors of dependent origination and cessation one by one in forward order. For example, in the case of ignorance, you see, number one, ignorance causes volitional formations. Number two, with the remainderless fading away and cessation of ignorance, volitional formations cease. And number three, ignorance is impermanent. Volitional formations are impermanent. You see each of the factors of dependent origination in the same way, internally and externally, in the past, present, and future. This is a very brief explanation of how you develop the arise and perish knowledge of formations. How you overcome the 10 imperfections of Vipassanā. It is at this stage that as you apply these methods and your Vipassanā becomes stronger, the 10 imperfections may arise. The 10 imperfections are, number 1, light, 2, knowledge, 3, joy, 4, tranquility, 5, happiness, 6, confidence, number 7, exertion, number 8, foundation, mindfulness, number 9, equanimity, and number 10, attachment. With the exception of light and attachment, the imperfections are wholesome states and are as such not imperfections, but they can become the objects for unwholesome state. You may become attached to them, which is why they are called imperfections. Should you experience any of the 10 Vipassanā imperfections, you need to overcome the attachment and desire that may arise by seeing it as impermanent, suffering, and non-self. That way you can continue to make progress. How you develop disillusion knowledge. After you have developed the arise and perish knowledge, your Vipassanā concerning formations is steadfast and pure. Then you have to develop the disillusion knowledge. To do this, you concentrate only the momentary perishing. To do this, you concentrate on only the momentary perishing and dissolution of formations. You see neither the arising of formations, nor the standing of formations, nor the signs of individual formations, nor the causal occurrence of formations. Using the power of your Vipassanā knowledge, you see only the dissolution of formations and perceive them as impermanent suffering and non-self. Number 1, you see the destruction, fall, and dissolution of formations to see their impermanence. Number 2, you see the continuous dissolution of formations as fearful to see the suffering in them. Number 3, you see the absence of any permanent essence in formations to see non-self. You have to see the impermanent suffering in non-self and not only the dissolution of mentality materiality, but also in the dissolution of those Vipassanā minds that saw this. That means you see the dissolution of materiality and know it is impermanent. That is your first Vipassanā mind. Then you see with the second Vipassanā mind, you see the dissolution of the first Vipassanā mind and thus know it too is impermanent. You do the same for mentality and then again for materiality and mentality to know them as suffering and non-self. You repeat these exercises again and again, alternating between internal and external, materiality and mentality, causal formations and resultant formations, past, present, and future. As you continue to discern the perishing and ceasing of formations in this way, your strong and powerful Vipassanā will progress through the next 6 Vipassanā knowledges. You know the first 11 knowledges. At this stage, you will have developed the first 11 of the 16 knowledges. The first 5 knowledges that you have already developed are: number 1, mentality, materiality, definition knowledge; number 2, cause apprehending knowledge; number 3, comprehension knowledge; number 4, arise and perish knowledge; number 5, disillusion knowledge. And the next 6 knowledges that you will progress through are: number 6, fearsomeness knowledge; number 7, danger knowledge; number 8, disenchantment knowledge; number 9, liberation longing knowledge; number 10, reflection knowledge; number 11, formations equanimity knowledge. Since you develop the first 5 Vipassanā knowledges thoroughly, these 6 knowledges develop quickly. There are a few instructions for them, but we do not have time to explain. You know and see Nibbāna. After realizing these knowledges, as you continue to see the perishing and vanishing of each formation with a wish for release from them, you will find that eventually all formations cease. Your mind knows and sees Nibbāna directly. It is fully aware of the unformed Nibbāna as object. This takes place with the arising of the path process. With the arising of the path process, you go through the remaining 5 knowledges. They are: number 12, conformity knowledge; number 3, change of lineage knowledge; number 14, path knowledge; 15, fruition knowledge; 16, reviewing knowledge. These last 5 knowledges arise with the arising of the path process. It consists of a sequence of 7 types of consciousness. Number 1, a mind door averting consciousness arises that sees formations as impermanence, suffering, or non-self, depending on how the formation's equanimity knowledge arose. Afterwards, there arise 3 preparatory impulsion consciousnesses which see formations in the same way. Number 2, preparation; number 3, access; number 4, conformity. These 3 impulsion consciousnesses comprise, in fact, the 12th knowledge, the conformity knowledge. Conformity to what? To what came before and to what will come after. Thus, they may be said to function as preparatory for, access to, and conformity with the change of lineage. Their repetition prepares the way for transition from the 8 insight knowledges that came before, from the arise and perish knowledge to the formations equanimity knowledge, with the formed as object to the 37 dhammas of the path and fruition knowledges, with the unformed as object. The conformity knowledge is the last knowledge that has formations as its object. Number 5, a 4th impulsion consciousness arises with Nibbāna as object. This is the 13th knowledge, change of lineage knowledge. Although this consciousness knows the unformed Nibbāna, it does not destroy the defilements. Its function is to change the lineage from ordinary person to noble. Number 6, a 5th impulsion consciousness arises with Nibbāna as object. This is the 14th knowledge which destroys the appropriate defilements, path knowledge. Number 7, a 6th and 7th impulsion consciousness arises with Nibbāna as object. They are the 15th knowledge, fruition knowledge. You review your knowledge. After this follows the last and 16th knowledge, the reviewing knowledge. It is 5 separate reviewings. Number 1, reviewing the path knowledge. Number 2, reviewing the fruition knowledge. Number 3, reviewing the defilements that have been destroyed. Number 4, reviewing the defilements that have yet to be destroyed. Number 5, reviewing Nibbāna. Then you will have attained true knowledge of the Four Noble Truths and will for yourself have realized Nibbāna. With this realization, your mind will have become purified and free from wrong views. If you continue in this way, you will be able to attain arhatship and paranibbāna. There are many more details about this development of Vipassanā, but we will have had but we have had to leave them out so as to make this explanation as brief as possible. The best way to learn about this practice is by undertaking a meditation course with a competent teacher, because then you can learn in a systematic way, step by step. Questions and answers 7. Question 7.1. What is the difference between perception sanya and perception aggregate, and between feeling Vedana and feeling aggregate? Answer 7.1. The 11 categories of perception together are called the perception aggregate. The 11 categories of feeling together are called the feeling aggregate. What are the 11? Past, present, future, internal, external, gross, subtle, inferior, superior, near, and far. All 5 aggregates should be understood in the same way. Please refer to the Khanda Sutta of the Khandavagga in the Samyutta Nikaya for the explanation. Question 7.2. To which associated mental factors do memory, inference, and creativity belong? They are part of the 5 aggregates, but how do they become suffering dukkha? Answer 7.2. What is memory? If you remember samatha meditation objects, such as kasina or anapananimitta, is right mindfulness. If you can see past, present, and future ultimate mentality materiality and their causes, and see them as impermanent, suffering, and non-self, this is also right mindfulness. The mindfulness associated with Vipassanā knowledge. This mindfulness is associated with 33 mental formations, which together are the 4 mentality aggregates. Remembering the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, and offerings made in the past is also right mindfulness. When the remembering of actions produces wholesome Dhammas, it is also right mindfulness, but not when it produces unwholesome Dhammas. These are unwholesome perceptions associated with unwholesome Dhammas. They are also the 4 mentality aggregates. The wholesome and the unwholesome mentality aggregates are impermanent. As soon as they arise, they perish. They are subject to constant arising and perishing, which is why they are suffering. Question 7.3. Which associated mental factors does taking an object involved? Answer 7.3. All consciousnesses, citta, and associated mental factors, cittasika, take an object. Without an object, they cannot occur. Consciousness and associated mental factors are the subject. The subject, aramanaka dhamma, cannot arise without an object. Aramanaka is the dhamma or phenomena that takes an object. In other words, the Dhamma that knows an object. If there is no object to be known, there is no Dhamma that knows. Different groups of consciousness and associated mental factors take different objects. There are 89 types of consciousness, and 52 types of associated mental factor. They all take the respective object. For example, the path and fruition consciousnesses and associated mental factors and take only one object, Nibbāna, and anapanajana consciousness and associated mental factors take only one object. The anapana pativanga nimitta, the earth kasina jhana, takes only the earth kasina pativanga nimitta as object. They are supramundane and fine material sphere consciousnesses. But a central sphere consciousness takes different objects, good or bad. If you want to know in detail, you should study the Abhidhamma, more exactly the Arhamana section of the Abhidhamma Mata Sanghaha. So, forgive my pronunciation, please. Question 7.4. Does work for the Sangha affect one's meditation? Does it depend on the individual, or can one achieve a certain degree of concentration after which work has no effect? Answer 7.4. In many suttas, the Buddha criticizes bhikkhus who practice the following: pleasure in working, pleasure in talking, pleasure in sleeping, pleasure in company, not controlling the faculties, not knowing the proper amount of food to take, not devoted to vigilance to practice samatha vipassana with only moderate sleep, laziness, not practicing samatha vipassana diligently. So if there is any work you have to do for the Sangha or yourself, try to do it as quickly as possible and then return to your meditation with a peaceful mind. If you enjoy working too much, it is a hindrance to meditation because strong and powerful mindfulness on the meditation object can then not be attained. Enjoying work does not produce good concentration. 7.5. Question 7.5. Can a person who develops the jhanas with evil intent benefit from attaining them? And how about a person who has, for example, spent the money of a sangha for his personal use and does not think it is wrong? When he attains jhana up to the fourth jhana, does his mind or view change? Answer 7.5. In this case, you should distinguish between a layman and a bhikkhu. If a bhikkhu has committed an offense, it is a hindrance to attain jhana. For example, if he has appropriated an allowable requisite of a sangha for his personal use, it is not easy for him to attain jhana unless he corrects that offense. That means he must pay it back with requisites of equal value to the allowable requisites he used. Then he should confess his offense in front of the sangha or to another bhikkhu. That means he should do a confession of offense. After correcting his fault, if he practices samatha vipassana, he can attain jhana, path, and fruition. If, without correcting his fault, he really did attain jhana, then maybe he is not a real bhikkhu, and so the offense was in fact not an offense. For lay people, purification of conduct is also necessary, and it is better if they purify their conduct before meditating, that is, if they undertake either the 5 or 8 precepts. That way, while meditating, their conduct is pure and they can attain jhana, although they were evil before meditation. For example, in the Dhammapada commentary, there is a story about the servant Kujutara. She was a servant of King Udina's wife, Queen Samavati. Every day, King Udina gave her 8 coins to buy flowers for the queen, and every day, Kujutara put 4 of the coins into her pocket and bought flowers with only the other 4. One day, the Buddha came with the Sangha for alms food at the florist's house. Kujutara helped the florist give the alms food. After the meal, the Buddha gave a Dhamma talk, during which Kujutara developed shame at having stolen the money and decided not to steal anymore. Her decision is an example of morality purified while listening to the Dhamma. With meditation, Kujutara became a stream enterer. On that day, she did not put 4 coins in her pocket, but bought flowers for all 8 coins. When she gave the flowers to Queen Samavati, the queen was surprised because there were more flowers than usual. Then Kujutara confessed. Consider also the case of Venerable Angulimala. Before he became a bhikkhu, he was a notorious murderer, but as a bhikkhu, he purified his conduct and strove hard in meditation, so he was able to attain arhatship. Consider also this fact: in the round of rebirths, everybody has done good and bad actions. There is no one who is free from bad actions. But if they purify their conduct while meditating, then previous bad actions cannot prevent them from attaining jhana. That is, however, only as long as those previous bad actions are not any of the 5 unintervenable kamas. The 5 unintervenable kamas are killing one's mother, killing one's father, killing an arhat, with evil intention shedding the blood of a Buddha, and number 5, causing a schism in the Sangha. If any of these evil actions has been done, one cannot attain jhana path and fruition, just like King Ajatasattu. King Ajatasattu had enough paramita to become a stream enterer after listening to the Samana Phala Sutta. But because he had killed his own father, King Bimbisara, it did not happen. You ask whether after attaining jhana, such people's mind or view changes. Jhana can remove the hindrances for a long time. A long time means if they entered jhana for about an hour, then within that hour, the hindrances do not occur. When they emerge from jhana, the hindrances may reoccur because of unwise attention. So we cannot say for certain whether such a person's mind will change with jhana. We can say only that so long as he is in jhana, the hindrances do not occur. There are many exceptions, as for example with the Venerable Mahathera Mahanaga. Although he had practiced samatha and vipassana meditation for more than 60 years, he was still an ordinary person. Even so, because of his strong, powerful samatha and vipassana practices, no defilements appeared in those 60 years. Due to this, he thought he was an arhat, but one of his disciples, the arhat Dhammadina, knew he was still an ordinary person and helped him realize indirectly that this was so. When Mahanaga Mahathera discovered that he was still an ordinary person, he practiced vipassana and within a few minutes attained arhatship. But this is a most exceptional case. You should remember another thing too. He was an expert in the scriptures as well as practice. He was also a meditation teacher, and there were many arhats who, like Dhammadina, were his disciples. Although he was an expert in samatha and vipassana, sometimes misunderstandings occurred in his mind because of a similarity in experiences. So if you think to yourself, I have attained first jhana, etc., you should examine your experience thoroughly over many days and many months. Why? If it is real jhana and real vipassana, then they are beneficial to you, as they can help you attain real Nibbāna, which is the pure land of Theravada Buddhism. But artificial jhana and artificial vipassana cannot give rise to this benefit. Do you want the real benefit or artificial benefit? You should ask yourself this question. So we should like to suggest that you do not say to others, I have attained the first jhana, too soon, because there may be someone who does not believe you. It could be that your experience is genuine, but it could also be false, like with Mahanaga Mahathera. You should be aware of this problem. Question 7.6. What is the difference between Rupakalpas and ultimate materiality? Answer 7.6. Rupakalpas are small particles. When a yogi analyzes those little particles, he sees ultimate materiality. In a Rupakalpa, there are at least 8 types of materiality: earth, water, fire, wind, color, odor, flavor, and nutritive essence. These 8 types of materiality are ultimate materiality. In some Rupakalpas, there's a 9th too, life faculty materiality, and in others a 10th, sex materiality, or translucent materiality. These 8, 9, or 10 types of materiality are all ultimate materiality. Question 7.7. When a yogi is able to see Rupakalpas or ultimate materiality, will his mind and views change? Answer 7.7. When he, with Vipassana knowledge, sees ultimate materiality, in each Rupakalpa his mind and views change, but only temporarily, because Vipassana knowledge removes wrong views and other defilements only temporarily. It is the noble path that stage by stage destroys wrong views and other defilements totally. Question 7.8. How does concentration purify consciousness? What kind of defilements are removed by concentration? Answer 7.8. Concentration practice is directly opposite the 5 hindrances. Access and first jhana concentration remove the 5 hindrances for a long time. Second jhana concentration removes application vitakka and sustainment vikara. Third jhana concentration removes piti. Fourth jhana concentration removes bliss sukha. This is how consciousness is purified by concentration, and that is called consciousness purification. Question 7.9. How does Vipassana purify views? What kind of defilement are removed by Vipassana? Answer 7.9. Before seeing ultimate mentality materiality, their causes and nature of impermanent suffering and non-self, a yogi may have wrong views or wrong perceptions such as this is a man, a woman, a mother, a father, a self, etc. But when he sees ultimate mentality materiality, their causes and nature of impermanent suffering and non-self clearly, this wrong view is removed temporarily. Why is it removed? He sees that there are only ultimate materiality, mentality, materiality, and their causes. He sees also that as soon as they arise, they perish, which is their nature of impermanence. They're always subject to arising and perishing, which is their nature of suffering. There is no self in these mentality, materiality, and causes, which is their nature of non-self. This is Vipassana knowledge. It is right view and removes wrong views. Vipassana knowledge also removes defilements such as attachment and conceit, which are partners to wrong view. So while yogi is practicing Vipassana, right view is present, but it's only temporary, because when he stops meditating, wrong view recurs because of unwise attention. He again perceives this as a man, a woman, a mother, a father, self, etc., and the associated defilements such as attachment, conceit, and anger will also reoccur. But when he goes back to Vipassana meditation, this wrong view again disappears. So Vipassana knowledge removes wrong views and other defilements only temporarily. When he reaches the path in fruition, however, his path knowledge will destroy those wrong views and other defilements completely, stage by stage. Question 7.10. What is the difference between chitta and ditthi? Answer 7.10. Chitta means consciousness or mind, but in chitta visuddhi, consciousness purification, it refers especially to a consciousness, an access concentration consciousness, or absorption jhana consciousness. Ditthi means wrong view and is an associated mental factor. It arises together with the four consciousnesses rooted in greed. Wrong view and conceit are always associated with consciousness rooted in greed. One wrong view is the perception of self. There are two types of perception of self. Number one, the world's general perception of self. This is a wrong view because of convention, the perception that there is a man, woman, father, mother, etc. Number two, wrong view of self. This is wrong view because of craving, the perception of an indestructible self, which may include the perception that the indestructible self is created by a creator. In the 31 realms, there is no self, only mentality, materiality, and their causes. They are always impermanent suffering and non-self. Outside the 31 realms, there is no self either. This Vipassana knowledge is Vipassana right view. It destroys wrong view temporarily, including wrong view of self. But the path knowledge, which is path right view, destroys wrong view completely. So what we have is, in fact, three types of view. Number one, wrong view. Number two, Vipassana right view, which is mundane. And number three, path right view, which is supramundane. In the Brahmajala Sutta, all 62 types of wrong view that exist are discussed. They all go under wrong view of self, which is also called personality wrong view. Sakaya Ditthi. Personality is the five aggregates, so personality wrong view is to see the five aggregates as self. There are also many types of right views, such as the right views called right views about the Four Noble Truths. Jhana right view, jhana knowledge associated with the jhana factors. Mentality, materiality, apprehending right view, the mentality, materiality, definition knowledge. Kama ownership right view, the cause apprehending knowledge. Vipassana right view, Vipassana knowledge of the impermanent suffering and non-self nature of mentality, materiality, and their causes. Path right view, knowledge of Nibbāna. Fruition right view, knowledge of Nibbāna. Question 7.11. How should a yogi practice wise attention in his daily life, and how is his samatha vipassana practice? And how in his samatha vipassana practice? Answer 7 and 11. The best wise attention is Vipassana. If you practice up to the Vipassana level, you will have the truly best wise attention. If you then practice Vipassana in your daily life, it will produce good results such as path and fruition that see Nibbāna. But if you cannot practice up to the Vipassana level, you should consider the fact that all formations are impermanent. This is also wise attention, but very weak and only second-hand. You can also practice the 4 sublime abidings, and especially the sublime abiding of equanimity. That is superior wise attention, because to practice the sublime abiding of equanimity is to see beings with regard to the law of karma. All beings are the owners of their karma. You can also sometimes reflect on the effects of unwise attention. Unwise attention causes many unwholesome karmas to come one by one. Those unwholesome karmas will produce much suffering in the 4 woeful realms, apaya. To know this is wise attention. You should practice it in your daily life. Question 7.12. What is the difference between attention manasikara and practicing the 7 enlightenment factors, the bhujanga? Answer 7.12. When you practice the 7 enlightenment factors, they are usually at the head of the 34 mental formations that include attention. Sometimes the 34 mental formations are called Vipassana knowledge because the 34 mental formations, wisdom, panya, is the main factor. In this connection, you should know the 3 types of attention. Number 1, attention as the basic cause for the object. That is the associated mental factor of attention. Its function is to make the object clear to the yogi's mind. Number 2, attention as the basic cause for the mental process. That is the 5-door averting consciousness in the 5-door process. Its function is to enable all 5-door processes to take their respective object. And number 3, attention as the basic cause for the impulsion. That is the mind door averting consciousness in the mind door process and determining consciousness in the 5-door process. It is either wise attention or unwise attention. Its function is to make the impulsion occur. If it is wise attention, the impulsion is for ordinary persons and learners wholesome, and for arhats only functional. When it is unwise attention, the impulsion is always unwholesome and cannot occur in arhats. Question 7.13. Could the Sayadaw please explain the diagram? Is it necessary in this system of meditation to practice the more than 30 types of meditation subjects? What are the benefits in doing so? Answer 7.13. We are not interested in diagrams. It is based on a diagram drawn by a school teacher who is very interested in diagrams. In Pa-Auk, we teach many types of samatha meditation to those who want to practice them. If they do not want to practice all of them, but only one, such as anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing, then we teach only that samatha meditation. When they have jhana, we take them straight to Vipassana, systematically stage by stage. While practicing samatha vipassana, there may sometimes be hindrances such as lust, raga, anger, dosa, and discursive thought, vitakka, which will disturb their concentration and vipassana meditation. The following meditation subjects are the best weapons to remove those hindrances. The Buddha gives them in the Mahaya Sutta. You should practice repulsiveness meditation to remove lust. You should practice loving kindness meditation to remove ill will. You should practice anapanasati to remove discursive thought. Furthermore, a concentrated mind can see ultimate dhammas as they really are. Of the concentration practices, the 8 attainments are very high and powerful. So to those who want to practice the 8 attainments thoroughly, we teach kasina meditation too. If you want to understand the diagram thoroughly, you need to practice samatha vipassana up to the path and fruition knowledges. Only then will you fully understand the diagram. Why are we not interested in diagrams? Because it is not enough to show the whole system on one page. We have explained the whole system in more than 3,600 pages in Burmese. One page is not enough. Question 7.14. Can a hating mind produce many generations of temperature-born octad kalapas and make the eyes flash? Answer 7.14. To say a consciousness produces light is only a metaphor, because in fact, apart from the rebirth linking consciousness, all consciousnesses that arise dependent on the heart base produce consciousness-born rupakalapas. Among these rupakalapas, there is always color. It is brighter if the consciousness is a samatha or vipassana consciousness. This is discussed in the Pali text commentaries and sub-commentaries, but it does not say that consciousness-born materiality born of a hating mind also produces light. Question 7.15. Is the seeing mind that sees mentality materiality itself included in mentality materiality? Is it included in wisdom? Answer 7.15. Yes, it is. You can see it in all the stages of Vipassana, especially at the stage of disillusion knowledge. It says in the Visuddhimagga, we must practice Vipassana on both the known and the knowledge. The known means the five aggregates and their causes, which should be known with Vipassana knowledge. The knowledge means the Vipassana knowledge that knows the impermanent suffering and non-self nature of the five aggregates and their causes, which are formations. Vipassana knowledge is wisdom, Vipassana right view. Usually, Vipassana right view arises together with 33 or 32 mental formations, which gives 34 or 33 mental formations respectively. They are called Vipassana knowledge. They are mentality dhammas because they incline towards the object of the impermanent suffering or non-self nature of formations. Why do you need to see the Vipassana knowledge itself as impermanent suffering and non-self? Because some yogis may ask or think about whether Vipassana knowledge itself is permanent or impermanent, happiness or suffering, self or non-self. To answer this question, you need to see the Vipassana process itself as impermanent suffering and non-self, especially the 34 mental formations in each impulsion moment headed by that Vipassana knowledge. Furthermore, some yogis may become attached to their Vipassana knowledge. They may become proud because they can practice Vipassana well and successfully. It is also to remove and prevent these defilements that you need to see the Vipassana knowledge or Vipassana process itself as impermanent, suffering, and non-self. Question 7.16. How to overcome the uninterested or bored mind state that occurs during long periods of meditation or staying alone in the forest. Is this kind of mind state an unwholesome Dhamma? Answer 7.16. This type of mind state is called indolence and is usually a weak, unwholesome Dhamma associated with greed or hatred. This type of mind state occurs because of unwise attention. If a person's unwise attention is changed to and replaced with wise attention, then he may succeed in his meditation. To overcome this mind state, you should sometimes recall that our Sakyamuni Bodhisattva's success was due to his perseverance. You should also recall the stories of arhats who had striven hard and with great difficulty to succeed in their meditation to eventually attain arhatship. No one can have great success without striving. It is necessary, especially in meditation, to persevere. Wise attention, too, is very important. You should try to pay attention to the nature of impermanent suffering and non-self in conditioned things. If you do like this, you may one day succeed. Question 7.17. Could the Sayadaw please give an example of a wish that is not associated with ignorance, craving, and clinging? Answer 7.7. If you practice when performing wholesome kammas and also see the impermanent suffering or non-self nature of those wholesome kammas, then ignorance, craving, and clinging do not arise. If you cannot practice Vipassana, then make the following wish. May this merit be a contributing cause for the realization of Nibbāna. Question 7.18. If the five aggregates are non-self, then who, Sayadaw, is giving a Dhamma talk? In other words, if the five aggregates are non-self, no Sayadaw is giving a Dhamma talk. So is there a relationship between the five aggregates and the self? Answer 7.18. There are two types of truth: conventional truth and ultimate truth. You should differentiate clearly between these two types of truth. According to conventional truth, there is a Buddha, a Sayadaw, a father, a mother, etc. But according to ultimate truth, there is no Buddha, no Sayadaw, no father, no mother, etc. This you can see if you have strong enough Vipassanā knowledge. If you look at the Buddha with Vipassanā knowledge, you see ultimate mentality, materiality, which are the five aggregates. They are impermanent suffering and non-self. There is no self. In the same way, if you look at me or at a father or mother, etc., with Vipassanā knowledge, you see only ultimate mentality, materiality, the five aggregates which are impermanent suffering and non-self. There is no self. In other words, there is no Buddha, Sayadaw, father, mother, etc. The five aggregates and their causes are called formations. So formations are talking about formations, sometimes about Nibbāna. There is no self at all. So how can we speak of a relationship? For example, if someone were to ask you, are rabbit horns long or short? How should you answer? Or if they ask, is the body hair on a tortoise black or white? How should you answer? If the self does not exist at all, we cannot speak of a relationship between it and the five aggregates. Even the Buddha did not answer this type of question. Why? Suppose you said rabbit horns are long. That would mean you accept that rabbits have horns. And if you said rabbit horns are short, that too would mean you accept that they have horns. Again, if you said a tortoise had black body hair, that would mean you accept that a tortoise has hair. If you said tortoise hair is white, that too would mean you accept it as hair. In the same way, if the Buddha said the five aggregates and the self are related, it would mean he accepted that there is a self. And if he said the five aggregates and the self are not related, it would also mean he accepted that there is a self. That is why the Buddha did not answer this type of question. So we should like to suggest that you try to practice meditation up to the Vipassanā level. Only then can you remove this view of self. Question 7.19. The Buddha taught the snake mantra to bhikkhus. Is chanting the snake mantra the same as loving kindness? Is chanting a mantra a Brahmanic tradition brought into Buddhism? Answer 7.19. What is a mantra? What is the snake mantra? We do not know whether mantras have been handed down from Hinduism, but in the Theravada text there is a protective sutta called the Khanda Paritta. The Buddha taught this protective sutta for bhikkhus to recite every day. There is a disciplinary rule which says that if a forest-dwelling bhikkhu or bhikkhuni fails to recite this protective sutta at least once a day, he or she will have committed an offense. Once in the Buddha's time, a bhikkhu was dwelling in the forest when a venomous snake bit him. He died. Because of this, the Buddha taught the Khanda Paritta. The purpose of this protective sutta is similar to loving kindness meditation. In that sutta, there are different ways of extending loving kindness to different types of snakes or dragon. Different type of snake or dragon. There is also an assertion of truth concerning the triple gem and the qualities of the Buddha and Arahants. We shall recite this protective sutta tonight. It is very powerful. You may call it the snake mantra. The name is not important. You can call it whatever you like. Some bhikkhus in Myanmar use this protective sutta for those who have been bitten by a venomous snake. It is effective. When they chant this protective sutta many times, and when the victims drink the protective water, the venom slowly decreases in them. Usually they recover. But the effect is not the same in every case. The Buddha taught this protective sutta to prevent bhikkhus from being bitten by venomous snakes. If a bhikkhu recites this protective sutta with respect and extends loving kindness to all beings, including the snakes, he will he will meet with no danger. Usually, if he also observes the monastic code, no harm will come to him. This ends Talk 7 by the Venerable Pa-Auk Sayadaw from the book Knowing and Seeing.